Before we dive in, I want to share something with you. If you've ever found yourself in the middle of a panic attack thinking, I don't know what to do, I don't know what to say to myself right now, I created a free guide called Panic Attacks: What to Say to Your Brain When You're Spiraling. Because in these moments, it's not about trying to force yourself to calm down or think positive. It's about having supportive words that actually meet your brain where it is so you can stop the spiral from escalating. Inside, I walk you through simple, grounded phrases you can say to yourself when your mind is telling you you're not safe, something is wrong, or you're losing all control. It's free and you can grab it in the show notes. I'm Shannon Ireland, your host of a Healthy Push podcast. I struggled with anxiety, panic disorder, and agoraphobia for 15 years. Everything used to be hard for me. Even just driving 5 minutes from my house used to feel impossible. But now I absolutely live for travel and adventure, and I experience lots of peace and joy. I've not only reclaimed my life, but I've helped hundreds of others to do the same. Here, we stop managing anxiety and instead we create a healthy relationship with it. One where you say goodbye to the anxious thoughts, symptoms, panic attacks, and fears, and you actually live your life. Forget complicated strategies, quick fixes, or the same old hacks you've heard 100 times before. Each week, I'll bring you simple, actionable advice and honest conversations that lead to real, long-term healing. You aren't just an anxious person, my friend. There are reasons why you're struggling with anxiety, and these are things you can fix and heal from. And this is where that journey begins. Welcome. You're right where you're meant to be. Hello, and welcome back to a Healthy Push podcast. I am so happy to be sitting down with one of my former Panic to Peace students. I feel like I've not had one of these conversations in so long, and I don't know why. I'm like, what have I been doing? So I'm super excited to have Lauri with me. She took my Panic to Peace program back in, I want to say we started at the end of September 2025 or maybe early October. And she went through that program and then joined my coaching community after that. And I am just so excited for you guys to meet her and hear her story. And we're going to talk about so much good stuff. So, Lauri, welcome to Healthy Push Podcast.
Thank you, Shannon. I'm happy to be here. Let me tell you, I actually joined your community waiting to get into Panic to Peace.
Oh my gosh, that's right. You did.
Yeah.
And so smart. Like I thought of that. And I usually it's the opposite. Like people will
Mhm.
take Panic to Peace and then they'll find, okay, I loved the accountability. Like I want to keep going with that. And I loved the community. But yeah, you're right. You took it while you were waiting, which was so smart because you got to like build connections. And I mean, we'll get into it. I don't want to take away from that. But let's start with when anxiety showed up for you, because I know you've had quite a long journey with it.
I have. When I first joined the community in Panic to Peace, I said that mine started 26 years ago. But as I thought back, it was 30 years ago that I had my first panic attack,
So wild.
which at the time I didn't even realize that that's what it was.
Yeah. What did that look like? Because this is so many people say this, right? Like, I had a panic attack, but I literally had no idea. Like, I just thought that I was dying or something really bad was happening or, like, there was physically something wrong with me.
Yeah, so I was entertaining clients at a restaurant, and, so that's stressful anyway, and everyone was just having drinks, and of course, being working, I wasn't going to drink, I was gonna be on my best, but the gentleman that I was with ordered an appetizer, and it was calamari, and I was like, "I don't know if I wanna eat that," and he said, "You need to try this," and he was staring at me, watching me, and I put that in my mouth and started chewing, and it just, like, got bigger and bigger, and I couldn't swallow, and all of the sudden, I guess I panicked. I just everything I felt like I was gonna pass out, my heart was racing, I kinda had tunnel vision, I had that in my mouth, but I couldn't swallow, I did not know what to do, so all I did was I got up and I excused myself, went in the restroom, and stood there just trying to decide what was happening. I knew I had to go back out and finish the evening with these clients of the company I worked for, but even looking in the mirror, I now know it's depersonalization. I didn't even know what that was. I just felt like I was completely outside myself. It was horrible. It was one of the scariest moments I've probably ever had.
Okay, so common, right? Like, you experience this crazy, like, intensity that you haven't experienced before, and you're like, "What the heck was that?" Did it really amount to anything after that, or was it just like, that was weird and you sort of just kept things going?
Yeah, no, that was it. I just thought, well, that was weird. But of course, I was trying a new food. I had important clients. I thought, oh, that makes sense. That was just a really scary moment for me. I drove home that night. It was an hour drive and didn't think about it again. Until about a week or 2 later, I was at my office and started feeling this same weird feeling again. And I had to, like, run out of the building, and I was sitting, outside, like, on this loading dock thinking, "What is happening to me?" My heart was just racing, and I just had this fear of, "I have got to get out of here." But at the time, I couldn't. I mean, that is where I worked. I had to be there. So I would go outside and try to catch my breath and pull myself back together and then go back in. But still, it was just like, what in the world is going on?
Yeah.
So but it didn't progress from there. It was just this really strange feeling.
Okay. So when would you say, like, it actually kind of caught hold where you were like, "Okay, this is happening more frequently. I'm pretty scared of it, and, like, now it's affecting my day-to-day life."
Yeah, so I went to the doctor a few years. I guess it had gone on when I think back on the timeline, it had been a few years. They went to the doctor and I figured I was dealing with depression. I had twins. They were 18 months old. I'd quit my corporate job to be home with my babies. And I just was feeling depressed. So I went to the doctor. He prescribed a medication for me. And they say you may feel more anxiety in the first couple of weeks. And I'm like, what the hell? Like, I'm
Yeah.
here to feel better. But that's exactly what happened. And I called my husband and said, "You've got to come home from work. I cannot." This fear inside of me was so intense. I did not feel like I could be alone. I had these babies. And of course, he was upset. He's like, "I can't just leave work." And I said, "You have to." Like I've never ever reached out for help like that before. So I'm no longer married to him, thank God. But he made it worse. He was mad at me and just like, "What is wrong with you? I can't leave work every time you're upset." And so, looking back on that now, I realize that really started my shame cycle, which was a
Yeah.
big contributing factor in how long I stayed stuck.
Yeah, of course. I mean, it's hard enough, right? You're a new mom, you have little ones, twins, you're in the thick of it and experiencing all of this anxiety and overwhelm. And it sounds like before that, you weren't really one to ask for help. Like, I've got this, everything's okay. And then when you feel like it's so bad that you have to reach out and ask for help, that's such a hard place to be in. Like, scary, right?
Very, very much so. I was really independent. I'd been a single mom. I had a son older. So I'd been a single mom for years before I got married. I just felt like I could do whatever I needed to do. I traveled anywhere I wanted to go. And so actually needing someone and being afraid of just being on my own, that was something I'd never experienced before.
Yeah. Oh, and that is what I know anyone listening, if you felt this, right? This sense of like, I can't trust that I'm going to be okay by myself, especially if I feel those feelings. It's the worst feeling in the world because you really do feel like I'm not okay unless I have somebody with me, unless I have help. So, what did it look like after this? Like, keep us going.
I decided I needed a therapist. I mean, I needed to figure out what was going on. So I found a therapist and I was driving over to my first appointment, which was probably 30 minutes from home. While I was on my way, I had a panic attack and I wanted to turn around and go home. Fortunately, I made it to the therapist, but as I was sitting on the couch, I don't even remember that conversation. I vaguely remember being there, kind of explained what was going on, left the appointment, went home, of course, scheduled for the next week, never went back. That's when my avoidance started, was at that point, because I thought, I will never drive on that road again because when I drove on that road, I panicked. So I just thought, well, the way to avoid feeling that way is just not to do that again. And so
Yeah.
that would have been 26 years ago.
Wow. So it really, like, kind of slowly built, but very intensely came to this point of, like, I'm just gonna avoid the places, situations that I felt that way before. So did it turn into, like, driving altogether, or it was only certain places, like, you could still go out, but it was limited?
Yeah, so it was easy to fall into that because, of course, I'd quit my job. I was home with my baby. So 90% of the time I was home. But I still was able to go out, go to the store, visit family, whatever. But I didn't have to travel far distances. And then that continued for years. The thing that's kind of odd about it is I made my babies safe people, which is,
Mm,
if anyone's experienced this, you know how people become safe. As I look back over the years, as my children grew up, they became safe people. I would say things in my mind like, well, they distract me. So I can drive, and if I panic, um at one point I actually thought with my one daughter, she was at this point, she was 10 maybe. And I thought, well, I'll just put her on my lap and have her drive. That would be, which is now I'm living in the country. So that doesn't, just so that it's not as crazy as that sounds. But I thought, well, and I'll be focusing on her and it'll be fun. And that would distract me from the panic I was feeling, which
yeah.
actually led to me at some point as I got back into the working world. I'm a real estate agent. And if I would have to go list a property outside my comfort zone, um, I there were times I would check my kids out of school to go with me or keep them home from school to go with me because I couldn't let my husband know what I was doing. I had asked for help from him once, and he had to be at work. So my kids became the people that kept me safe.
I am so happy and proud of you for sharing this part because it's obviously really hard, I think, with when you do have, well, I think you've worked through a lot of shame, but when you have that shame there of like, I I did this, right? And it probably was not like the best thing to do for me or my kids, but like I felt so desperate, and this is I've heard this so many times. So if anyone's listening and they've done something similar or felt like you've had such a reliance on even your young kids, it makes so much sense. Like you were just so desperate to feel okay, to feel that sense of safety. Like it makes so much sense.
It does now, but at the time, you're right, it didn't. And the shame was crazy. And not only keeping it hidden from my husband, but I was out in the business world. Like, this was my profession. Why would anyone want to hire a real estate agent that didn't dare to drive to their showing? And then with the people I worked with, I've worked with the same group of agents for 20 years. And it wasn't until Panic to Peace that I actually told them what was happening. They had no idea. 20 years, I hid that from everyone I worked with. But during that time, I missed conferences, education, things that I needed to go to. I could come up with 1,000 excuses as to why I couldn't make it.
Wow. I mean, also so common to hide it, but truly, like, you don't think that any of them knew or had any sense of what was going on with you for so many years?
I don't because I think we have a good enough friendship that they would have asked me. There was a few times they offered, like, "Why don't we just all drive together?" Well, that didn't make me feel safe at all. I'd be like,
Yeah, no.
"Absolutely not. I am not a good passenger. I need," which is kinda crazy, but I need to drive. That makes me feel at least I'm somewhat in control, and I'm not going to drive with someone else because if I need to leave, I need my own vehicle there to leave in.
Yeah. Yeah, I need it out, like, if I don't have it I was the same exact way. When people say, like, being a passenger is easier, I'm like, "Oh my gosh." That was the biggest, like, loss of sense of control I could feel, and I would do anything to not be a passenger. That makes so much
Yeah,
sense too.
exactly.
Yeah. Okay. So, oh my gosh. So you're in the like working world, you're functioning, but you're really putting on a face every day. And I can imagine how much anxiety you felt like having to bring yourself to go to listings and showings and like show up and sort of pretend, right, that you're okay and that nothing's going on. Like that must have been so hard for so many years.
Yeah, hard and embarrassing. I just keep getting back to the embarrassing part of it because I thought I'm a successful real estate agent. How in the world am I afraid to drive 20 miles? I mean, my world started to shrink more and more and more. And there was a point in time where my office was 20 minutes from where I lived. And one morning I woke up and I just had just these crazy feelings like my whole body was tingling. And I thought, what is going on? And immediately I thought, well, maybe my blood sugar is low. So I went in and I drank some orange juice and I'm like, that's not working. And I laid back down and I tried all of these things. And I laid on my back in my bed and put my feet and my hands up in the air, thinking, is there getting too much blood going to my hands and feet? What is happening? And that continued for probably 30 minutes, 40 minutes, up to an hour, to where I finally said, this is the one and only time I went to the hospital and I said to my husband, there is something very wrong with me. This is not blood sugar. This is something's wrong. So we went over to the ER. Um, Now let me throw in there, I am very med phobic during this time too, and I've learned that that's because of loss of control. All
Uh-huh.
of the what ifs, I take this and it makes me feel weird and I can't get it out of my body, and so in the ER, I had this doctor and he said, "You're having anxiety. This is anxiety." And I'm like, "No, I have never had anxiety in my life." Which is interesting too because I had panic, but I never felt anxiety, which I didn't I guess I didn't really know what anxiety was. I felt nervous, I had all of these different feelings, but true anxiety, no. So he said, "Well, we're gonna give you this medication and we'll see how you feel." Within minutes, everything felt better. I was relaxed, my stomach was not in knots, the tingling stopped. I hadn't been able to eat for hours, and suddenly I was like, "I'm hungry," and I thought, "Oh my gosh, this is anxiety." I had no idea what that was. So that, hearing a doctor finally kind of diagnose, I guess, that that's what I was experiencing was I don't know if it made me feel better or worse because that did not make sense to me that a feeling could cause so much chaos in my world.
Yeah.
But, yeah, I have to at the I don't know, I got to a point where I had a panic attack driving over to my office 20 miles away. So I thought, "Oh, well, don't drive on the freeway." So I started avoiding the freeway. So I was driving the frontage roads because I thought at least I can turn around on a frontage road, which if you're not in the from Utah, that's a side road that you can follows right alongside the freeway, but you can turn around and go back. And, I had to call my mom once, from my office to come and get me because I didn't dare to drive back to my hometown, which is where she lived. It just spiraled. It just continually got worse.
Yeah. So I imagine I'm glad you mentioned your mom because I think she's been like a big safe person for you, right, in all of this. And I think as your kids started to get older, did that bring some more like stuff into the mix too? Because I mean, I think when they're little, it's one thing, and then they start to get older, and you're like, oh my gosh, are they noticing? Like, do they know what's going on with mom? Did you have any of that?
So as my kids got older, in my mind, they became more and more safe because they had more capabilities to protect me, which I pride myself on being a good mom. And I look at that and I think, no, you're the protector. What are you thinking? My children didn't know. They started to figure out, I think, as they got older, when I was checking them out of school and making them miss activities, that they were like, no, mom, I don't want to. So they did start to figure it out. And then as they became teenagers, I did start to explain to them what was happening. But, every year, I was big on New Year's resolutions. And my number one resolution every year was I was going to get rid of panic. And every year that went by, I didn't. And I felt like such a failure. And as this was happening, my kids were getting older and older as well. I wasn't in a good marriage. And so I knew I couldn't rely on him. And so I had 5 children at home, and as each one of them grew up and left, I felt more pressure like, "Okay, now you're down to 4, now you're down to 3." And
Mm,
so not only was I not learning to not be afraid of the fear, I was so focused on getting rid of it because I thought that's what I had to do. So I had the pressure of getting rid of it. "Oh my god, your kids are leaving. What are you gonna do when they're gone?" Um, it just built. The pressure intensified year after year.
yeah, and do you feel like that's where your mom started to come more into the mix? It was, like, as your kids got older?
Yeah, and she's always been there for me, but when my dad passed away, she wanted to leave because, as I mentioned, we're in a rural community, and she needed to move to an area where she could have a life, which, okay, now my mom's 2 hours away. That's awful. I needed her. And as she's aging, my mom's 82, and I thought, okay, I can always call my mom, and I'm like, "All right, you're relying on teenagers and an elderly person," which she's in great shape, so I don't wanna refer to her as elderly. But then I started to worry, like, what if I panicked and I called my mom and she drove 2 hours, and what if something happened to her? How am I gonna feel? So I just kept building layer upon layer of pressure of how I was inconveniencing people and what is wrong with me, and how is it that you just can't handle this? And as I would go out every day, I would see people driving down the freeway, and I found myself checking their license plates, thinking, "That person's from Massachusetts. That person's from this state. How" and they were driving by themselves, and not realizing, again, what I was doing to myself. I just more and more and more was making myself feel so bad about myself, like something was seriously wrong with me. Everyone else was in the world. They were living, "What is wrong with you?" It's been rough. It's been a really, really hard thing to deal with. At one point, I actually thought to myself, um, if a doctor said to me, "I will cut off your finger and you will never experience panic and anxiety again," I, honest to goodness, would say, "Absolutely, take my arm if that would do it."
Yep.
There were times I also found myself thinking, "I can't do this. Like, if this is what my life is gonna look like, I don't want to be here." But yet, I didn't want to make that decision either. And I hate to even say this, but I thought, if I got cancer and it took my life, then my kids and my family couldn't be mad at me. But I could check out. I would be gone, it wouldn't be my fault, and I wouldn't feel this way anymore, but at the same time, I love my life. Like, I love living, so it was just a really, um, really hard place to be, and I just could not. I felt so alone. Um, I didn't I would look up agoraphobia, and it said, "The fear of wide open spaces," and I'm like, "What the hell? That is not."
Right.
Or I would read something about you can't leave your home. I'm like, "Well, I can, I work." So I just felt like something's wrong. I don't fit into any category of panic or anxiety or agoraphobia. I just had some crazy mental illness that nobody could help me with.
I am so proud of you for sharing all of that because it is so I can hear the emotion in your voice. It's so hard when you, like, have lived it and it really, like, consumes every aspect of your life, and you do feel like, "I I wanna live." Like you said, like, "I love my life, but I can't live like this." Like, it feels really impossible to wake up every day and have to carry all of this. I don't wanna not ask you this because I know people might be wondering, and I don't want you to share, like, the names of medications or anything, but when you took the medication, was it like an emergency medication type, or was it an SSRI, or did you like, take a combination?
Yeah, it was an SSRI, and I was given a prescription of emergency meds, which, of course, I was terrified to take.
Yeah.
But I carried that bottle with me for 26 years. I still have. I mean, of course, every few years, I'd be like, "I think I need a refill." I'd never taken one, but I did learn to rely on that bottle.
Oh, that's another so common, like, you're so scared to take it because you don't know how it's gonna feel, what it's gonna do, is it gonna make things worse? But you do feel, quote, "safer," so you just carry it around even though you never use it. It's like, that's such a common experience. So, it sounds like the SSRI was helpful, and you did stay on that, though.
It took some trying. The first one was very stimulating, which I think is what actually caused the panic. So we did try a different medication that it actually did. I say it worked, which is so crazy to me because I still had panic, not every day, but it did not take the panic attacks away. So after being on the same medication for 18 years, I just thought, okay, this is helping me. But what I realized looking back is the avoidance is what was preventing the panic. The SSRI did help. I mean, I was struggling. I was depressed. I mean, how can you not be depressed when I don't even know if I wanna live anymore. That is depression, and you're right, Shannon, when you said that it consumes every aspect of your life, every single thing I did in life, whether it was work, family, um, recreation, it revolved around how am I going to avoid a panic attack? Who do I need to take with me? Where do I feel okay to go? Oh, do I have gotta make sure I have food. I've gotta make sure I have my water bottle. I've gotta make sure I have this emergency medication. If my phone looked like it was gonna die, oh my gosh, I'm gonna stop and buy a charger somewhere because there is no way I'm gonna go anywhere if my phone's gonna die. I mean, everything revolved around how do I prevent that feeling from
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah. Ugh, it's the worst because you know, and you, like, have this sense of how your actions are, like, causing the anxiety to continue to be there because you're constantly focused on it, you're constantly trying not to feel it, but it feels like the safest thing to do. Like, I am literally just gonna try to avoid feeling it at all cost, and so it makes sense, like, that you had all these behaviors. So I'm curious, walking into finding my community, walking into that, like, what was that experience? Like, what was going on for you when you decided to join the community?
Sure, and let me tell you when you say, that I knew all of these things was making it worse, I did not. Until I joined the community, I had no idea. I just felt like these were things I was just doing. I wasn't thinking, I was just doing,
Yeah.
not realizing how layer upon layer I was making things worse. When I joined the community, it's because I was at my wit's end. I mean, I truly 4 of my children had married and moved out. I had 1 left. I'm now divorced after a 30-year marriage. And I just felt like I have got to figure this out. This is my year. So I started looking and I found several programs. One of them was in Boston, which I'm in Utah. And I thought, okay, number one, I can't drive 2 hours. How am I going to get to Boston? I thought, "Oh, well, I'll just take my mom with me. We can do that." Well, as I read about the program, it was $8,000, I think, just for the program. And they said that I needed to be prepared for intense exposure therapy, and it was
Mm.
8 to 10 hours a day, which terrified me, and I thought, "Okay, so I'm gonna leave my mom in a hotel." I'm in Boston, in a city I've never been in, and, it's $8,000 plus flights, plus food, plus all of this, and I thought, "Okay, we're looking at probably $10,000, $12,000. I can't do that." So then I thought, "Well, I need to find something closer to home." I found a program that was a couple of hours away, which happened to be in the same city my mom lives in, which I thought, okay, I could do that. It was a 6 week inpatient treatment program, which they specifically said they dealt with panic and agoraphobia. 6 weeks, you had no phone, no access to your computer. Well, I have to work. I can't leave my job for 6 weeks. And I have a daughter at home still. And that was $30,000. So over the years, I've spent an insane amount of money on books and programs and this and that, looking for that magic cure. So when I thought, okay, you $30,000, what are you going to do? Mortgage your house? This is insanity. And I had found you on social media several years ago, and I actually messaged you to be in the Panic to Peace program, and I was on the wait list, and I got your cute voice recording, and I was like, "Nope, I can't do this. I'm not doing it." So that was a few years ago, but I continued to follow you, and as I continued to follow you, you started talking about agoraphobia, and yet you worked, and as you shared your story, I thought, "You this is the first person I have ever heard that makes sense to me." Every doctor I called and scheduled, my first question was, "Have you ever had a panic attack?" If they said no, I was on to the next. Every therapist, I would same thing. "Have you ever had a panic attack?" "No." "Well, then you can't help me because you don't know what I'm talking about." And my mom was awesome. She did say, "I feel so bad because I don't know what I'm here, I'll do whatever, but I don't know what you're feeling." So listening to you, I thought, "You get it. You've been there. You're doing it." And so I thought, "What do I have to lose?" The program, the cost was much less than I was paying for my weekly visits with my therapist, who didn't have panic, agoraphobia, or anxiety, but yet he was trained. Um, but I was still stuck. So I thought, okay, I'm going to take a break from therapy. I'm going to give this a shot. And what do I have to lose? It's so much less than $30,000. Let's just see where it goes. And while I was on the wait list, I saw an Instagram uh, post or something where you were talking about your community. And so I was so ready and anxious to give this a try, then I joined the community first while I was waiting for the Panic to Peace program to start.
It's just so crazy. Like, of course, there's so much of what you just shared that I wasn't aware of. And I'm sitting here going, oh my gosh, like, I can't imagine. I mean, I can imagine, right? Being in this place where you're so desperate that you're literally contemplating spending thousands of dollars. But it's like, I can't. Like, who can do that, right? Like, a lot of these options aren't feasible. But it's also like, it's not necessary, like, you don't maybe need all of that, and so coming into the community, I remember pretty quickly, like, your experience being, "Holy shit, there is other people that struggle with the same stuff that I do," and I think that was so incredibly healing for you. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that I want to say that was my number one. This is hard. For the first time in 30 years, I felt seen and heard and like I wasn't a crazy person. Um, we had such a great group and we had people from all over other countries. Language barriers were even kind of fun because I was trying to figure out what some people were saying, but boiled down to is we were all in the exact same place, and it was so healing to feel like there isn't something wrong with me. This is something I'm experiencing, and so are all of these other people, men and women. And having the men in our group, I thought was amazing because we look at, I think so often men don't take care of their mental health. And here were these men being so vulnerable and sharing what they were experiencing. And I'm like, okay, this isn't just a woman thing. This isn't just a mom thing. This is a human experience, and it doesn't mean there's something wrong with me. I'm just going through something. And it was wonderful, truly. It just, yeah, I just can't say enough about hearing them say the exact same words I had said. Kind of blew my mind. I thought, what? As they started saying, my world's getting smaller. I started avoiding, all of these things. I'm like, I've said those exact same words.
Yeah. And you're so right. Everyone there, whether it's the community or Panic to Peace, it's like everyone's there because they have such intense fear of feeling. And like that's so much of what it comes down to. And so being able to see like that's what it is, and so many people are struggling just like I am, and I think it really helps you to work through a lot of that shame that you carry, like, because I think for so long, right, that was such a big piece for you of, like, feeling that embarrassment, that shame, that, like, there's something wrong with me, and how freeing to finally see and be able to feel like, "Oh, I'm not crazy, there's not something wrong with me, like, I'm not broken."
Exactly. And learning that I was afraid of feeling, I thought that makes sense. That just some of the basic things of the program made so much sense. And really, it was just the way you taught us to look at it differently, to think about it differently. It's like shift your mind. That was a big part of my healing.
Okay, so let's fast forward a little. I'm so curious because I know you've had such a long journey. What are things looking like now for you? Because I know and I can always see it when I have certain people come into either my community or Panic to Peace. I could see right immediately that, like, you had this determination. Like, "I am done with this. I am so determined. Like, tell me, help me, like, I will do anything." And you really, like, were accountable for yourself and your journey, and I think that's a big part of why you have made so much progress in such a short amount of time. But let's talk about what it's looked like over the past 6 months or so.
Yeah, lots of life changes. So my youngest daughter is getting married actually this weekend. I am in a new relationship, which one of the conversations we had was when you're experiencing this and feeling so broken after my divorce, how do I, that person at least knew I stayed in my marriage a lot longer than I should have because he knew the broken me. He knew what I was going through. But how embarrassing to have to meet someone new and tell them, like, oh, I can't meet you because I can't drive 30 minutes from home. So I thought, well, I'll just never date. I'll just stay single. I've got these great kids. I got grandkids. That I truly was ready for just living this small little world. But I did meet someone, and with the support of the community, we had a conversation of how I was going to tell him. And I actually had a panic attack with him. Um, but of course, most of the time you can't tell someone's panicking. But that night I decided I needed to tell him because if this is something he couldn't understand and support me through, that wasn't a relationship I was going to be in. And I told him, and he had never experienced panic or anxiety. And I remember specifically saying, "It's a lot, right?" And he said, "Yeah, that's a lot." And I thought, well, we're over. That's it. We're done. But he said, "But I want to be there for you. And at that moment, I thought, okay, I still wasn't sure that trust. I'm like, oh, I don't know. But he asked a lot of questions. He said, well, how far can you go? Uh, do you think you are ever going to leave the city you live in, which is a very small town? So he asked a lot of questions and was very patient with me. And he knew all of my safety behaviors. And the first trip out, he was amazing. Like, he showed up with a cooler full of all of these healthy snacks and water and just everything that he thought I could possibly need, which, looking back, maybe that was a little bit of enabling. But as we've gone through the program, it wasn't. You said, do what it takes to get out there. And I thought, okay, yep, no shame. This guy knows that if I panic, my first thought is, give me food.
Yep.
Because my sugar starts with it almost feels like a blood sugar drop.
Yep.
And then immediately my body goes, here we go. So I did. I had this cooler full of food, and I did it. It was 9 hours round trip. We had good conversation. It was so I'm like, okay, but he still didn't quite feel like my safe person yet. It took some time to grow, and I don't actually. I should say, I want to live my life without a safe person for my panic. I want to be in a safe relationship, and he is that safe relationship, which is much different than relying on my safe person.
Yeah. You want that safety within yourself, not within anyone else. But of course, in any relationship, we want that comfort, we want that trust. We want to know we're going to be supported when we need it. Like that's bare minimum, right? What we should get in relationships. But I'm so like I feel like this trip obviously was massive. But before that, I mean, you don't live close by. Like he's a significant distance from you. Like there was so much work that you were putting in to start to, like, not have so much avoidance, right? To actually allow yourself to feel. So it wasn't like Lauri just got in the car and took this massive trip with her boyfriend. You so dedicated to, like, "I'm going to push myself. I'm consistently gonna take steps." And, like, it was the mix of, "Yeah, I'm gonna push myself to do things that I'm afraid of," to, like, drive to get on the highway to go places that I've panicked before, but I'm also gonna do a much better job of taking care of myself and working through the shame and, like, doing so much of that self-compassion work. So maybe can we talk a little bit about that stuff too? Because I mean, it's so amazing, of course, when people are like, "I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do this big thing," and you took this trip and it was beautiful and you've, like, done so many big things, but there were so many little steps that came before that, right?
Yes, yeah, we did just take a 5-day trip, but there were. I mean, we in the community we play bingo, which has been huge for me because it did hold me accountable. And on my bingo card each month, I would try to put down exposures. Well, in the beginning, I was writing things like, I'm going to drive to the next exit, or I'm going to do this and that. But because I live rurally, those were 2-hour trips, and I'm so busy with work, I didn't have time for that, and you said something like, "What's your why?" You've gotta have a reason. Don't just write things, don't just do them to check a box, which I think that's what I was doing, and in my mind, I started to have a shift where, I knew I could drive to a certain point on the highway, but if I crossed that last exit that I felt comfortable in, immediately I would start to panic. And that, because of the mind shift, that started to not make sense to me. I started to visualize me standing at this exit, and it's like, okay, on this side of the line, I'm safe, but if I step across, I'm not. And I thought, okay, why is that? That does not make sense. And so just starting to really evaluate my thinking was huge. And we talked a lot about capacity and compassion, and I've said my favorite things now when I think about my 3 C's of healing, have been number one, compassion, and being compassionate with myself has been huge. And then because of the compassion, I've been able to grow my capacity and my willingness to try. And I think the reason for that is community because I feel supported. So those are my 3 C's of healing. And I think of them often. Um, but I just started to do things and I'll in full transparency, I'm still not able to drive to his house. He lives 2.5 hours away. Do I think I'll get there? Absolutely. But there's a lot of steps in between here and there because it's traffic, insane, and I'll get there. But I have taken drives on my own. An hour and a half away. I've experienced, getting into traffic. One of mine, I know we talked about some of these, attempts are gonna be messy, which no, I don't want them to be messy. I'm still trying to avoid, but you talked once about you have to feel, and sometimes that means you're going to panic. And if I'm still keeping my world, um it safe. I don't even know if safe's the word. If I'm still trying to avoid panic, I'm not growing. But telling me to do something that might cause panic is like telling me to jump in a pit of alligators and I'm going to be safe. Like, "Oh, I don't want to do that." But now I tell myself, "Okay, we're gonna try it. We're gonna see what," and I hear your voice in my head all the time. Um, Try it. See what it looks like. If it's messy, that's okay. Try again. And so that's huge for me.
Yeah.
I'll take trips where I'm like, "Okay, I'm gonna run to this grocery store because there's a reason I need to go to the grocery store." Let's try the a grocery store that actually is larger than the market in my hometown, um, and it is liberating. I mean, I walk in and I feel like, "Oh my gosh, there's a sushi bar in this grocery store. And look at that." It's almost like Disneyland for somebody with agoraphobia. I'm like, "Oh my gosh, look how crazy these grocery stores are." And I'm there by myself and I'll grab a coffee or I'll do whatever and I make an event out of it. And that has built so much self-trust because I am on cloud 9 when I accomplish something. The entire way home, I'm just listening to music loud and the windows rolled down, and I just feel so good. Like, look what I'm doing. It to someone else, it may seem small. To me, it's huge and liberating and amazing.
And it's so massive. It's so funny because obviously watching you in your journey, like from being in the community to Panic to Peace to continuing on with my community, one of the things that I love most is you share pictures. Like you literally like stop, take pictures, like share your experience. And the amount of inspiration you've given to others and hope, and, like, it's so funny because we'll get on so many calls and people will be like, "Lauri is so incredible," and, like, it's just so funny because I know you're, like, secretly cringing and dying inside, but it is, like, you've consistently pushed yourself to take all these steps and to really be there for yourself and, like, keep yourself focused on, "I want this big, beautiful life, and I deserve it and I'm gonna keep working toward it." And it's just been so wild to see you, like the trip, right, you just took, getting on a plane with your boyfriend who's not your safe person, like, being away from home, doing going on a boat, like, doing all these things, and you're just like, "I'm living my life." Like, yeah, there's some anxiety still, but, like, I'm actually allowing myself to go toward living. There's nothing more beautiful than that.
Yeah, exactly. And that this trip that we took, I shared in the community that I mean, I woke up with huge amounts of anxiety and I just thought, I cannot do this. What am I going to do? Um, and I did what I needed to do to be comfortable and to go. But I did say that it I feel like I have a second chance at life. Everything to me seemed new and amazing and I just thought, look what I've been missing out on just the out of fear because I'm afraid. And I could tell myself all the things I would say Anxiety has never killed me. It always stops. All of the things that run through my head, but it feels awful. And I don't care if it didn't kill me. I don't care if it stopped eventually. Yes, I've had hundreds of panic attacks and every one of them ended at some point. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't want to experience one more as long as I live. But that's where the shift came in. And I there was one person in our community that he took a he went to a football game, a professional football game, and he was talking about it, and he had a massive panic attack while he was there. And he was very open and he shared, and in my mind, I just kept thinking, "Okay, but it passed, and he survived, and he did it, and he is here telling us about it." And so I gained a lot of inspiration from others in the community too, big or small, whatever it was just hearing if she can do it, I can do it. If he can do it, I can do it because
Mhm.
we are all the same. And that is something that I finally realized. This is not just a Lauri problem. This is not just I am broken. This is not something that's just wrong with me. It's a feeling that I've learned to be afraid of, but I'm learning to not be afraid of it now. It's still going to feel awful when it happens, but I don't want to fear that anymore. And so I am going to continue to push myself. And that's why I've stayed in the community. Um, it's what are we in May? So in August, it'll be a year for me that I've been in your community and since I've done Panic to Peace and it's truly it's been the best year of growth and support and I feel so good about myself. I had lost so much trust in myself that I knew before I joined I had to do something because it was actually getting worse. I was starting to fear being home alone, things that had never bothered me before. And I couldn't figure out what was happening. But you taught us the, that the more we allow fear to control ourselves, the more it causes us to not trust ourselves. And that again, that made sense. I'm like, okay, that is it. I don't trust that if something happens, I can handle it. So just all of it. It was so helpful.
Ugh, I like you've literally blown me away. You've just stayed so committed to yourself and your willingness, your trust, like all of it has grown so much in such a short amount of time. Like you think of 30 years of struggling with this to really like working toward creating this healthy relationship with anxiety and the amount that you've been able to do in the past, what, 8 months is just incredible. And I think a big part for you is you had to learn that you cannot shame yourself into healing. Like it has to happen with compassion and support and just like allowing yourself to be human. So I am just so incredibly proud of you, Lori. You've done so amazing and continue to show up. And it's just so freaking cool to sit here and be able to watch you like making these steps toward living because you deserve every freaking ounce of it.
Thank you. I kind of am still I just can't believe that this is where I'm at. Really, because when I look back and I think about how much I have missed out on, um, which we talked about in one of our groups, I can't. If I look back, I'm going to stay stuck. And then that makes me feel guilty and shameful. And I'm like, nope, that happened. I can't change that. And that's
Yep.
okay. Um, I I've learned so much about being compassionate towards others and being aware. And I feel like I notice people more and I think, oh, I think that person might be panicking. Or I feel like I gained a lot in those 30 years, if nothing else, but just to be so compassionate to where other people are because this life is hard. We are all struggling with something and just mine might look different than someone else's, but we need each other. And I think in a world where we're so divided right now, to be able to connect with people from all over the world that share one common thing, and it's if it has to be panic and agoraphobia, let it be, but it was amazing to just know that I feel like I have friends all over the world that I relate to, and we sent Christmas cards to each other, and it's just been fun. It was a great group and such a good experience.
Well, Lori, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. And I'm already thinking you're going to be like, Shannon, I'm already thinking we're going to have a follow up one. Come back, tell me what things are looking like now. But I am just so proud of you. Like, you have everything that you need. And I know you're going to continue to make so much progress. And I'm just so, so happy for you.
Thank you so much.
I hope you loved this episode of A Healthy Push. If you have, I'd be so grateful if you could leave me a rating and review wherever you're listening to this podcast. This helps people to find the show and get the support they need. And if you know someone who could use a little push, be sure to share this episode with them. And for even more support, head over to ahealthypush.com for show notes and loads of tips, tools, and inspiration to help you on your recovery journey. I'll see you next week.